Welcome to The Confident Networker with your host, Simone Douglas. In each insightful episode, she chats with one of the leading people from the BNI and business world.
Okay, so on this week's episode of The Confident Networker, today I am joined by the lovely Sergio Silvestri from Complete Workflow Solutions. Welcome, Sergio.
Thank you, Simone.
So for our listeners' benefit, because they don't know you as well as I do, tell us a little bit about your business and what it is that you do.
So essentially what I like to do is it's about helping businesses understand, the value of process, procedures and the like, but also how to bring them into something that can actually be used as a training tool.
Yeah.
And also then using that then to create time management with it as well.
Yeah.
So it's incorporating not just the procedures, writing something and putting it into a file. It's about turning that procedure into a learning document and then using that procedure to also then put a time value to things and be able to actually then manage your time more effectively.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So how long have you been in BNI?
BNI, so January 2020.
Uh-huh.
So it's about 18 months or so, 19 months or so. It's been an interesting journey because I joined BNI when I was only 6 months or so in business.
Yeah.
So it was really more for me at that time was really just about trying to expand my network.
Yeah.
Didn't even know what BNI was, as you're well aware. And then, couple conversations, couple meetings, and as you know, I made that phone call to say, am I allowed to join?
We should probably give the listeners the backstory. So a very good friend of both of ours, Chris, told Sergio he needed to have coffee with me. So we were having coffee and we identified that builders and trades are potentially really good referrals for Sergio with his background. So I said, look, you need to meet Chris. The only place I know where he'll be is different Chris, is Friday morning, 7 a.m, breakfast, do you want to meet him? And Sergio's like, is this BNI thing I keep hearing about? I'm like, I'm not inviting you to join anything. Do you want to meet Chris or not? And he said yes. We went to breakfast. And yes, then Sergio rang me a couple of days later and said, can I please apply? I'm like, you do what you like. I'm just not in charge. So I guess on that note though, why is networking important for your business these days?
Well, the nature of my business is I'm not face-to-face with people all day, every day. So I'm not networking naturally through business.
Yeah.
I've got a selected amount of clients and it's time allocated to them. So I'm not getting that move around and having the face-to-face conversation with a lot of people every day.
Yeah.
So having a networking group allows me to expand that network that way. And it's in a different way because you're actually building relationships. It's not just talking to people.
Yeah.
And so going back a step, if I was to look at it again, even if I did have the face-to-face interaction, it's still not the same as what you build in a BNI chapter.
Yeah.
And a BNI network.
Yeah.
More so. Because it's not just your chapter; it's a bigger network. So, in hindsight, I look at it and go, the reason I was doing it was still good, but regardless of even if that wasn't the case, I would definitely recommend going through that because it doesn't just build a face-to-face. Yes, this is what I do. See you later.
Yeah.
It's a relationship. It's a shoulder to lean on when things are tough.
Yeah.
I mean, last year was a perfect example.
It was huge. And your business was how old last year when the pandemic hit? Not very.
8-9 months.
Yeah.
And I went from all this work to zero work.
Wow.
And people might say I say that because I'm involved in BNI, but if it wasn't for BNI, I don't think I'd still be in business today.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty safe to say because I literally had to start again almost.
Yeah.
Once we got out of the lockdown stuff, it basically had to start again because I didn't have enough to go on. I suppose people had so much going on that I wasn't relevant anymore, so I had to start building up my brand again. Yeah. So it was pretty full on, and having the support of the room is really what got me through at the end of the day because I was pretty dark the first week or so, few days, and then just talking to other people in the room and us sort of talking through it together. It just got to that point where we were able to then, how do we make the most of this time? Yeah. So it turned from, oh my God, doom and gloom to how do we actually get the most out of this time that we're stuck, maybe not being able to work, but we can network, we can do one-to-ones, we can catch up with people, we can brainstorm, start conversations. So that's what it created. And I mean, you can look at my stats. I did like a ridiculous amount of one-to-ones.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing probably
Well, it was so easy on Zoom.
It was so easy.
So you didn't have to travel because we couldn't anyway.
Just back to back to back to back. Like that's basically what it was like. I just went with it. And, some of those relationships I made are not necessarily people from within my room, but they're from the BNI network that had I not been involved in that, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So
that makes sense.
And work's come from that now.
Yeah.
So it just pays to value it for what it is. To me, like I said, I don't know, I might be different to everybody else, but I always looked at it as I'm not here for the receiving referrals.
Yeah.
I'm here for me, it was about building my business up to a point where getting to understand my business a bit better too, because I was very young.
Yeah.
Like we spoke about the tradies.
Yep.
That really changed as time went on. We realized that it just wasn't the right way to go for my business. So BNI helped me see that.
Yeah.
Talking to the people in the room when we were going through things and we're breaking things down, realized that it just wasn't the right, as good as it could have been that way. Potentially, the industry just wasn't set up for me to be able to help them in that way. So it allowed me to sort of pivot the business a bit and get more focused on what I can help people with.
Yeah. Now you have some really good advice for business people, which I'm going to extract from you in a second. And then after that, I'm going to want to know what the best piece of business advice is you've been given by a BNI member. But to start off with, and you've done a lot of work with me, helping me with my businesses. What is this magical Tibet thing that you talk about to people?
Yes. So it's interesting because there's a lot of different phrases that people use that references to Tibet, but I like the reference to Tibet because it's a spiritual place as well.
Yeah.
So when you reference Tibet, your first thought isn't necessarily negative.
Yeah.
And sometimes Tibet isn't negative. But there's a reality in life that somebody may pick up today, get on the plane and go to Tibet. And we got to assume when they're in Tibet, they have no access to email, to phone, to any communication. So as a business owner, if you end up in Tibet tomorrow, what happens to your business?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Or if someone you count on in your business packs up, goes to Tibet tomorrow, what happens to your business? It's the same question all the way through. From the technician at the bottom to the manager at the top. Yeah. It's the same question. So it's a good conversation starter because the answer is, is usually the same, and it's I don't know.
Or it's like, oh God.
Oh dear, what am I going to do? Right?
Yeah.
So Tibet's a great way to get the understanding of the value of what is in here to be able to be documented into something tangible.
Yeah. Well, and you were saying too, about it being a positive because, often the other term you hear all the time is, well, if someone gets hit by a bus tomorrow.
Bingo.
Which is very negative.
It's very negative.
and it actually gets in the way because you're like, oh. Whereas the Tibet thing, I was good with that. Oh, Tibet test. No, we're not Tibet ready. And in fact, like with Tamara, my general manager, going off and starting her own business, which is super exciting for her.
So it's a good Tibet in that sense.
Tibet, but I just need to make sure that Tibet doesn't hurt.
Correct.
So, it's things like that. So what is the best piece of business advice a member has given you since you joined?
There's a lot. But I think it's been helping me focus in on my strengths, because I was very broad in terms of what I was doing when I first joined.
Yeah.
And it's helped me now get to a point where I'm a little bit more specific with the type of work, and that's come from people challenging me. Yeah. So there's a number of people in the room, I won't mention the names, but there's a number of people in the room that I can have those candid conversations with and be honest with each other.
Yeah.
And they've really helped. So that's the kind of thing I've really gotten out of that part of it. And again, this is when I say the referrals aren't what wasn't the main reason, is because they'll come.
Yeah.
It's building those trusty relationships where you can lean on someone and actually go, what do you think?
Yeah.
And get a
honest
true response.
Answer. Yeah.
Not a family or friend response, which is one extreme or the other. It's either that's awesome or you're mad.
Yeah. I'd like the middle ground and the pros and cons.
Yes. Yeah. Give me the real. Give me the real. Right. And if it is white down there, that's fine. But I want to hear the real, not the friendly.
So I think that real comes from relationships, absolutely. And I think that is something that BNI does, BNI doesn't do it. BNI doesn't do relationships. The people in the room do the relationships. BNI creates an environment where that can happen, which is quite, special. as when you were a relatively new business, and if you were talking to, some of our listeners who are either just about to start their own business or have just started their own business, who maybe think they don't have anything to offer in that structured networking environment, what advice would you give to them?
You'd be surprised what you can bring.
Yeah.
Sometimes just the vibrancy that someone from a new business can bring to revitalize somebody that's maybe getting a little bit stagnant in the business. Yeah. So you're definitely going to get a lot as a new business. There's no question. As long as you're willing to have those discussions and build those relationships, you'll get a lot of value as a new business, because you just have you've got a number of sales agents that are working for you.
Yeah.
1, 2, you've also got a network of shoulders to lean on, which Absolutely. I think that's the really important part. But like I said, what you think what am I going to bring to this? You bring plenty. You bring knowledge from your industry, which may not be other people in the room may not have knowledge of.
Yeah.
You also again bring potentially vibrancy and a revitalization of a potential member that you might be working with. So you don't. It's endless what it can bring. Going with an open mind, and I think you can always gain a lot of value one way or another, and give a lot of value in ways that you didn't even think you could.
Absolutely. Does someone who visits a BNI chapter have to join BNI?
No, absolutely not. I think visitors are, most of the time, I've not experienced anyone that's come to one as a visitor for me, that's come to the meeting and not thought they got value out of the room without even contemplating joining.
Yeah.
So I think that there's enough value there. We go to networking events all the time. We'll get invited to a Business Society network event or whatever it is, and we go along, you do what you do, and you walk out and you go, okay, it's the same thing, except the best part is if you come to us, you get breakfast.
Exactly.
So, you have breakfast with a bunch of people and you get to hear a lot of smart people talk.
Yeah.
You get to see a presentation or a couple of presentations, and most of the time you go, whoa, I don't even know any of that. That's awesome. It's super easy way to just build your network even as a visitor. Now, the side effect is if you're in that point in your business and you're really getting value, you do start to contemplate that. Maybe this is actually something I could contemplate doing. Maybe not. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
So I think, you raise a really good point, which is, BNI chapter meetings are networking events like anything else. Just like Business SA events or chamber events where it's open to members and non-members. We love to have visitors come and visit, but the advantage of coming to visit a BNI chapter is that you're in a room full of people who have been trained how to network well and how to build relationships. And so I find, and certainly, with the visitors that I bring, is like they'll say everyone was so welcoming. They were so interested in my business. They asked me such great questions. So I always say to people, look, just go, because you'll discover how to network in a way that's good for you. Now, to wrap up, because I think we're getting close to time and I can talk to you all day. If there was one person that I could put you in front of to have a cup of coffee that would help you take your business to the next level, help you achieve another goal in your business, just in case they're listening to the podcast, who would that be and why?
That's a great question. It's a difficult one for me. I guess it's comes down to not a specific person. It's probably more people are in a position that are dealing with businesses, and maybe they see certain things that are not great, but it's not stuff that they necessarily work with. So we talk about procedures like that. It's the foundation of a business. Yeah. So when someone goes in to help with something else, whether it may be software or accounting or whatever, they're likely to encounter some fundamental issues that are causing the problem.
Oh, got you. Yeah.
And they don't know how to deal with that. Yeah. That's where I can come in and offer assistance in the procedural aspect, the foundation of the business. So is there a particular person I could be in front of? It's hard to put a name on that person because I don't know what people's foundations are, but it's someone that sees that on a regular basis would be the perfect person for me to be in front of.
That makes sense. I think too, I would have said that one of your ideal clients, you'll have to correct me if I get this wrong now, is people who are buying their second and their third businesses and they're not sure whether the infrastructure is right in the first one.
That's a good one.
So I think one of the things that I discovered, now at business number 3, and the reason that I got you in to consult with us for business number 1, is because I recognised that I pulled myself out of the business because I've got all these bright, shiny objects to play with, but wasn't confident that the systems and the processes and the infrastructure were there. So just having that second set of eyes to go, what if, really changed.
I guess that's a good example. So a sounding board to challenge what's there.
Yeah.
And most people think they've got pretty good bones.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not that they don't.
I thought I had good bones.
Right. But it's until you ask those. It's just hard questions.
Yeah.
So they're not friendly questions. They're nice. Yeah. I do it nicely.
You're friendly when you ask them.
But they're hard questions because it's hard to answer, to say yes when you challenge something and there's no tangible object to go with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what it's. But whether it's 2 or 3 businesses, whether it's one business, whether it's getting that business to step to the next level, it doesn't really matter in that regard. It's really just about, as soon as you're questioning. So you got to be, to work with, to think about me as a to come in and help you business. You actually need to be at a point where you're thinking about
being better.
Am I doing this the best way I can?
Yeah.
Right. So a business owner who's actively thinking about, is this the best way for me to do it? That's going to be someone I can work with well, because they've already got the brain switched over into.
And they want it to be the best way.
Correct.
So they're engaged in the process. Sergio, thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you, Simone. It's been a pleasure.
And if you happen to know that person that Sergio is talking about, I'm sure they would love to come and visit BNI Business Plus, and Sergio can host you guys over breakfast and very good coffee. Thanks again, and I will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Confident Networker. You can find more episodes and information at bnian.com.au/podcast.